The punishment. The hall was silent. It was not an ordinary hall. It was a great court built by the Alien Council. Walls made of black stone, light shining from strange crystals. Hundreds of eyes stared at the center where one young alien girl stood. Her hands were tied, her face pale, and her body shaking. The elders of the council sat high above her, their voices cold, their judgment already decided. They called her a liar. They said her tongue had spread false words. They said she tried to poison minds with fear. She had spoken of a shadow in the stars, a danger moving closer each day, but nobody believed her. Some in the crowd laughed. Others whispered cruel things. No one dared to defend her. To speak for her would mean to share her punishment. The girl's eyes filled with tears, but her voice did not break. Even as chains pulled her to her knees, she still whispered, "It is coming, please. You must believe me." But the council's guards moved quickly. Their hands were sharp, their faces without emotion. One elder raised his hand and gave the order. The punishment was simple and cruel. If her tongue had spoken lies, then her tongue would be cut. The human mechanic stood in the shadows at the back of the hall. He was not part of this world. He had been hired to repair ships, to fix machines, nothing more, but he had heard her words. Something about them felt different. Her fear was real. Her voice carried truth, not lies, yet here he was, forced to watch as justice turned into cruelty. The crowd leaned forward, hungry for the moment. The guards held her head still. She struggled, eyes wide, tears falling. Her gaze moved across the hall and locked with the humans. For a heartbeat, he forgot to breathe. Her eyes screamed what her mouth could not. "Believe me," then the blade came down. A sharp cry filled the hall and then silence. Her voice was gone, forever stolen from her. The crowd erupted. Some cheered, some jeered, the council declared. The liar has been silenced, the people are safe. But the human mechanic felt sick. Nothing about this felt like safety. It felt like a warning ignored. The girl collapsed, her body trembling in pain. Blood stained the floor. She tried to speak, but only a broken sound came out. The guards dragged her away like useless trash. And still her eyes burned with desperation. Still she pleaded without words. The mechanic clenched his fists. He wanted to shout. He wanted to stop it, but he was only one human in a hall full of aliens. His voice would be crushed, yet deep inside a seed was planted. A question that would not leave him. What if she had spoken the truth? He left the court with heavy steps, but her silent scream followed him, haunting his ears, haunting his thoughts. As he walked through the city of tall alien towers, their lights bright, their streets full of laughter, he could not forget the girl's eyes. He could not forget the fear in her voice. Her words echoed in his head. "It is coming." That night in his workshop, machines hummed around him. Ships waited for repair, but his mind was far from his work. He stared at the stars through a small window. They looked calm, peaceful, endless. Yet he remembered her warning. A shadow in the void, a danger unseen. Was it real? Or was it truly just a lie? He told himself it was not his fight. He was just a mechanic. His job was to fix engines, not to question councils. But when he closed his eyes, he saw her again. The blade, the blood, the broken voice, and those eyes begging for belief. The mechanic lay awake, his heart heavy. He did not know then that her truth would soon become his, and that one human mechanic would carry the weight of her silent words, words the galaxy had chosen to ignore. Because sometimes the greatest danger is not the lie, but the truth that nobody wants to hear. The mechanic doubts. The night was long. The human mechanic sat alone in his workshop. Machines rested in silence, their metal frames glowing faintly. He tried to focus on his work, but his mind would not obey. Every sound reminded him of the girl's scream. Every shadow reminded him of her desperate eyes. He told himself again, "I am just a mechanic. This is not my fight," but the words felt empty. Her warning kept circling inside his head. A shadow in the stars, a danger coming closer. Why did those words feel so heavy, so real? He walked to the ship he was repairing. Its core was still warm, its systems flickering with faint signals. As he checked the logs, something unusual appeared. Strange interference, repeating again and again. Like a whisper in the dark, his heart froze. It matched the rhythm of the girl's warning. He stared at the screen. His breath quickened. It could be an error. It could be nothing. But deep down, he felt it was not an accident. He felt the universe was trying to speak to him, through broken signals and silent screams. The next morning, he tried to tell the alien officers. He showed them the strange patterns in the ship's systems, but they laughed. They mocked his concern. "Humans are too emotional," they said. "You see danger where none exists." Just like that lying girl. Their words cut deep, but his doubt only grew stronger. The mechanic could not let it go. He sneaked into restricted areas, He entered the archives of the alien fleet, a place where humans were forbidden. Dusty shelves and glowing data crystals lined the chamber. The air was heavy with secrets. His hands trembled as he searched. He expected nothing, but then he found it. A fragment of an old report hidden deep. It spoke of signals from the void. Long ago, warnings ignored, explorers lost. The words chilled his blood. It was the same story the girl had tried to tell. His heart pounded. He looked over his shoulder. If the council caught him here, punishment would be swift. But the truth burned too bright to ignore. He copied the fragment, hid it in his tool belt, and slipped away before footsteps could find him. That night he returned to his workshop. He laid out the fragment beside the ship logs side by side. The truth connected. Her words were not lies, they were warnings. And the galaxy had chosen silence. The mechanic sat in the dim light, his fists clenched, his chest heavy with anger and fear. How could they punish her for truth? How could they blind themselves while danger moved closer? But then he felt something else, a question sharp as a blade. What should he do now? He was only one human, alone in a world that mocked him. A stranger among aliens, could he even make them believe? His thoughts were broken by a knock at the door, soft. Hesitant, trembling, he froze. Slowly he opened the door and there she was. The girl, her face pale, her body weak, but her eyes still alive, still burning with desperate light. She could not speak, her voice was gone. But in her hand was a small slate. Shaking fingers scratched symbols into it, lines and circles, shapes that made no sense at first. But the mechanic stared, and slowly the picture formed, a map. A warning, the shadow moving across the stars, closer, closer, towards the heart of the galaxy. The girl looked up at him, her eyes wet, her hands shaking. She begged him without words, "Believe me, please." And for the first time since the punishment, she saw something she had lost, on hope. The mechanic nodded, his voice steady. "I believe you." And in that moment, the silence of her broken voice was replaced by the strength of his. But outside the workshop, shadows moved, eyes watched. Someone had followed her. Someone had seen the forbidden meeting. The council's wrath would soon fall, and the price for belief would be heavy. The silenced truth the night outside was quiet, but inside the human mechanic's workshop the air was tense. Two figures sat close to each other. One human, one broken alien girl. She had no tongue, no voice, but her eyes spoke louder than any words. She scratched lines again on the small slate. Her trembling hands drew circles, arrows, and strange shapes. The mechanic leaned close, trying to understand. At first it seemed like chaos, but then his mind caught a pattern. It was a map, a path through the stars. And at the end of that path lay a dark region with no light. The girl pointed at it again and again, her eyes wide, her chest rising and falling in panic. The mechanic felt a chill. He had seen this place mentioned in the old archives. A void where fleets disappeared. A silence no one dared to explore. The girl's warning was real. The danger was real. For the first time since her punishment, the girl smiled faintly. Tears ran down her cheeks as she realized someone finally understood. Someone finally believed. Her shoulders shook as she cried silently. And the mechanic felt his own chest tighten. It was unbearable to see how hope had been stolen from her. All because she dared to speak truth. Suddenly the workshop's light flickered. The mechanic stiffened. A shadow passed outside the window. Footsteps echoed faintly in the corridor. They were being watched. Someone had followed her here. He quickly hid the slate, but before he could move further, the heavy door burst open. Alien guards stormed inside, their armor shining, their weapons raised. The girl froze in terror. The mechanic stepped forward, his heart pounding but his voice steady. She was only asking for help. "Leave her," the guards sneered, their leader growled. "Spreading her lies is treason. And you, human, will share her fate." They grabbed him, forced his arms behind his back. The girl tried to fight, her broken voice releasing a painful whisper. But they struck her down without care. The mechanic was dragged through the streets. Alien crowds stared, some spat, some laughed. Others turned away in silence. Fear ruled them all. No one dared question the council. No one dared believe the silenced girl. He was thrown into a cold cell. Metal walls pressed tight, chains locked around his wrists. Darkness filled the air, but inside his heart something stronger grew. Anger not for himself, but for her. For the injustice she had suffered. For the truth they had buried under cruelty. Hours passed, then footsteps came again. The cell door opened. The guards dragged him to the council chamber, the same place where he had watched her punishment. This time he was the one kneeling in chains. The elders glared down. Their voices thundered. "You are human. You were hired to repair ships, yet you dare to question us. You dare to believe the tongue that was silenced. The mechanic lifted his head, his face bruised but his eyes burning. Her voice was silenced. Not her truth. His words rang out across the hall. The crowd gasped. Whispers spread like fire, but the council's anger only deepened. They declared him guilty of treason. Punishment would follow. He would be broken just like her. As guards dragged him away again, he saw her in the corner of the hall, weak, trembling, but still alive. Their eyes met, and even in her pain she lifted her hand slightly, a sign of courage, a promise that truth could not be killed. That night, as he sat in the darkness of his cell, the mechanic realized something. They could chain him, they could silence her, but the shadow in the stars was still coming. The predator did not care about counsels or lies. It was real, and soon the galaxy would pay for ignoring her warning. His heart hardened. He swore silently that he would not let her sacrifice be wasted. He would find a way to prove her truth. He would risk everything because now her voice lived in him, and her truth was his mission outside, far beyond the stars. Something vast moved in the dark, closer with every passing moment, and the galaxy remained blind, because the one who had tried to speak had been silenced. Hunted for belief, the human mechanic sat chained in the dark cell, his body bruised, his mind racing. He could still hear the council's words echoing in his head. You will share the liar's fate. Their cruelty burned inside him. But stronger than fear was the memory of her eyes, eyes that begged him not to give up. Hours passed in silence. Then the cell door opened. 2 guards entered, dragging him roughly to his feet. They whispered to each other as if hiding something, but he caught fragments. Execution. Before dawn. Make it quick. His blood ran cold. They were planning to end him before the sun rose. As they marched him through the corridors, the mechanic searched desperately for a chance. His heart pounded. The walls seemed to close around him. But then he noticed. One of the guards carried a device at his belt. A recorder. Its light blinking faintly, it was the same device used to capture official evidence. An idea sparked. If he could get to that recorder, he could prove what the council was hiding. He could show the signals, the map, the truth. But he needed help, and the only one who believed him was the girl with no tongue. They threw him back into a holding chamber. Not the same as before, this one was smaller. With a single barred window outside, he saw movement. Her, the girl, hiding in the shadows, her face pale but her eyes still alive. She had followed, risking everything. She raised her hand, held up the small slate against the window. Quickly she drew again, this time not a map, but a plan. Lines of guards, a hidden corridor, a path to freedom. The mechanic's heart raced. She wanted him to escape, but could they both survive? The girl pressed her hand to the glass, silent tears in her eyes, and he understood. She would rather die helping the truth escape than live in silence. When the guards returned, the mechanic stumbled forward, pretending weakness as one leaned close. He struck with sudden force, a desperate move. The guard fell, and in the struggle the recorder clattered to the floor. He seized it, fought with all his strength, chains biting into his wrists, but rage gave him power, and soon he was running through the halls. Alarms rising behind him, the girl met him at the hidden corridor, her steps weak but determined. Together they slipped through the shadows. Torches and boots thundered close. The council's wrath was awake. The hunt had begun. They reached the edge of the city. Beyond the towers, the night stretched wide. Alien ships glowed faintly in the distance, but freedom was still far away. Guards shouted, lights swept the streets. The mechanic grabbed her hand, pulling her into an alley, but she stopped suddenly, shaking her head, her lips trembling. She could not run fast enough. Her body broken by punishment. Her eyes told him the truth. If she stayed with him, both would be caught. She pushed him forward, tears spilling silently, begging him to go without her. His heart broke, but her strength was greater than his. Even voiceless, she commanded him. Carry the truth. The guards closed in, their weapons glowing in the dark. The mechanic looked at her one last time, then turned and ran, her figure fading behind him. As she stepped into the open, drawing the hunters to herself. A sacrifice without words. Shouts filled the night. Blades flashed, her broken whisper carried on the wind. One final word torn from her ruined voice. Truth. The mechanic stumbled into the darkness, his chest burning, tears blinding his sight. But in his hands he clutched the recorder, the proof of her warning, the only weapon left against the lies of the council. Above, the stars stretched endless and cold, and somewhere far out in that void, a shadow moved closer with every heartbeat, while on the ground one human ran, hunted for belief, carrying the last voice of the silenced girl. Humanity proves her right. The human mechanic ran through the wilderness beyond the alien city, dust rising with every step. Behind him, alarms still screamed. Ships searched the skies with beams of light, but in his hands he clutched the recorder, the last piece of her truth. His lungs burned, his legs shook, but he did not stop, because he knew her sacrifice had given him this chance. And if he failed now, her suffering would mean nothing. At the edge of the city, he reached a human outpost, a small base hidden among the alien towers. Human soldiers stood guard, surprised to see him staggering in the night, his clothes torn, his body bleeding. "Help me," he gasped. "I have proof." She was right. They brought him inside. His trembling hands placed the recorder on the table. With a weak breath, he activated it. The room filled with strange signals, echoes from the void, a pattern of movement. The same shadow the girl had drawn. The soldiers exchanged worried looks. The captain leaned closer, his voice grave. "This is no error. This is a fleet moving fast." The mechanic's heart tightened. Finally, someone believed. Finally, her truth was heard. Messages flew across human channels. Fleets were alerted. Ships prepared for war. While the alien council still laughed in their towers, thinking they had silenced danger, but in the darkness of space, sensors began to scream. The predator was real, and it was already here. The mechanic stood before the human commanders, his face pale but his voice steady. They punished her, they cut her tongue. But she spoke truth. If we do not act, we will all fall. The captain's jaw hardened. Then we fight. When the alien council finally detected the threat, it was too late. Massive ships emerged from the void. Dark, silent, and deadly, the predator fleet moved like a storm, devouring every patrol in its path. Panic spread across the alien world. The same leaders who had mocked her now trembled in fear. Desperate, they called for help. But their own fleets were weak. Their pride had blinded them for too long. It was humanity who answered. Human warships rose from orbit, engines roaring, guns burning bright against the night sky. The mechanic watched from the command deck, his hands gripping the railing. The battle shook the stars. Humans fought with courage, ships tearing into the predator fleet with fire and steel. The aliens watched in awe, their arrogance broken, their survival now in human hands in the chaos. The mechanic's thoughts returned to her, the girl who had given everything, who had been silenced, yet whose voice now roared louder than any fleet, because every blast, every strike proved her truth. When the battle ended, the predator fleet lay in ruins, burning wrecks scattered across the void. But victory carried a heavy weight. Many lives lost, many ships broken. Yet humanity stood unbroken, and the galaxy knew the truth at last. The alien council gathered again, this time not in arrogance but in shame. Their voices shook as they admitted fault. They spoke of rebuilding, of unity, but the mechanic said nothing. His heart was far away, with the grave of a girl who could no longer speak. Later he walked alone to the outskirts, where a small mound of stones marked her resting place. The air was quiet. The stars shone bright above. He knelt beside the grave, placed the recorder gently on the stones, and whispered, "They believe you now. The galaxy knows you were right." His voice broke. Tears filled his eyes, but in that moment he felt something warm, as if her silent spirit was there. Smiling faintly, not with sorrow, but with peace, he rose slowly, his body weary, but his heart burning with a vow. "Your truth will never be forgotten. Your voice lives in us now, in humanity, in every star that remembers this battle far above." The stars glittered like her eyes, silent yet powerful, and in that silence the mechanic knew one thing. She had not died a liar, she had died a prophet, and one human had carried her truth into the light.